So everyone still has UTXOs. Everyone still needs an entry in the Bitcoin database. And so that helps the scaling because you're not doing like every transaction, but still some of your transactions do need to be globally broadcast. So yeah, and I can just say like, I'm definitely like, I think it's quite common too when there's a lot of people who really like Bitcoin and they're like very enthusiastic, and that's great. And then if you actually start working with the people who, you know, program Bitcoin every day, a lot of times they're much less enthusiastic. Like, you know, they're enthusiastic because we work on it, we love it. But all we work on is the problems, right? Once something is working well, we don't work on it anymore. So really, we're just focused on all the problems with it. And so, yeah, the people who are really working on Bitcoin are like, oh, there's so many problems with Bitcoin we need to fix. And that's the same, like when we were starting Lightning Labs, to me, it's like, okay, engineering, like I'm going to tell the VCs, you're like, hey, give us money so we can make this company. And I would say, here's all the problems we have. We have these good ideas, but we don't have this. We need to make this. We don't know how to do this. And sometimes people will say, hey, don't say that. You should just say the good things about the company. And to me, it was like, well, we're asking for money. If we only had good things, we wouldn't need the money. We'll already be done. So I'm definitely mostly focused on the problems. And yeah, there's a lot of issues still in Lightning today, even though it works so much better than it did a few years ago. And I can't take credit for that at all. Like, I really didn't work on Lightning at all from like 2019 to 2022, like 3 years or so. I was working on discrete log contracts and then UTXO almost the whole time. So everyone else is working on Lightning. I'm just sort of like, okay, helping out a little bit now. So yeah, there's still lots of stuff to do. And maybe some of that requires, you know, changes to how Bitcoin works. In terms, like there's stuff like check template verify that people are talking about, and new versions of something like Lightning. So maybe maybe Lightning is sort of version 1.0 and we need to make a newer version of something.
I'm going to translate some questions. Gook said, you remember the 6 degrees of separation of the idea that all people are connected? And if you look for a translation, you are going to find like we are all at 6 grades of separation from Shakira. But I'm making the translation to the scientific part. Like the idea we are all connected from each other from the social side. You think it's possible, like if everybody run a node in our phones, or if everybody run a Lightning node in their house, will be all connected? Or what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I don't worry too much about that. So that's sort of like graph topology of, you know, can we have these connections? That part doesn't seem like a challenge too much. And it's because it can be somewhat centralized. And some people are like, oh no, everything needs to be decentralized. And I think the design of Lightning is such that, like, well, even if it's somewhat centralized, it's kind of okay, because you're not trusting, you know, if you have like one big node with 1 million users connecting channels to it, well, you're not trusting that node. And so it should be okay to have nodes with very large number of channels. And so you could sort of say like, well, think of it as like, you know, your ISP for internet. You know, maybe you have one ISP and millions of customers for an ISP. And then there's only a few thousand ISPs in the world, and they can all directly connect with each other. So some topology like that seems like reasonable, where everyone will be able to be connected after only a few hops, probably less than 6, probably 4 or 5. And you get that by having large nodes with many channels. And I think that's okay, because the design is it's safe to do that. So that's what I think.
Okay. Somebody have a question? Otherwise, I'm going to...
There's a lot of... Yeah, there's a...
Okay. Are you familiar with this with the stable coins, stable sats? Sorry, that the stable sats from.
So there's a lot of different ways. Like I like. Well, I mean, I like discrete log contracts because I came up with that one, and that's sort of a way to do different. How do you say it? Like, you know, Bitcoin price stability, where you're saying, okay, I'm entering into this channel and I get, you know, $100 worth of Bitcoin out. And so if Bitcoin goes up, I get less Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes down, I get more Bitcoin. So I have like a stable value. I don't know if that's called stable sats or they have a different system to do that. But yeah, like I like the model with discrete log contract, probably because I made it up. And I know there are some companies doing that now, but I don't know if there's a company called Stable Sats doing it.
Yeah, I think it's Galoy from Galoy in El Salvador, Bitcoin Beach. And this is something that I've been trying to transmit to friends and people here in the community of Satoshi, Library of Satoshis. Like, we don't need to know everything. Like, most of the most smart people, like I know in Bitcoin and Lightning space, it's okay to say, I don't know, because like if you don't know the answer, you don't have to, to tell you have the answer. um, Katria from Cuba, she has, and they can say hi, and you can. She say, "Do you think Lightning is going to become centralized?
I
It's a
lost you for a
risk."
second. Sorry.
Se-
Okay, it works. I just lost internet for a second. Maybe.
Okay, yeah. Katria from Cuba say, "Do you think Lightning Network it's going to be centralized? Is that a risk, or do you have any other opinions about it?"
So there are some risks. So I think if you have a model where there are large businesses that run nodes with many thousands of channels with people, I don't worry about that by itself too much. But there are risks I see where, like, if you can't run your own node and you can't have your own way to close these channels, that I think is a big risk. So we look at, and that's one of the problems I see with Lightning is, like, there's all these different wallets and different software, and a lot of it, like, isn't really trustless at all. A lot of it is, like, hosted or custodial or something where it's like, yeah, these are kind of centralized and they can just take all your money really easily. Versus if you say, okay, well, there's this centralized node that has a million channels and so many people are connected to it. But if all those people on their phone or on their laptop are running a full Lightning node, then I think that's safe. It's still somewhat centralized in that you have, like, one node, and if that node goes down, that's bad because everyone loses their connectivity and has to move their channel to somewhere else. So that is a risk, but I think that part is okay. But we see lots of different software that it's hard to know what security or what risks it's making. So it's not like you can say, like, oh, that doesn't count. That's not an official Lightning network. Like, there's no trademark. There's no copyright. Like, it's like Bitcoin. Anyone can say they're Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin Cash says they're Bitcoin. And so anyone can just make a wallet and say it's Lightning. So yeah. So that's one risk. If you have, like, big companies and they're saying, oh yeah, run this Lightning node, but or like, use this Lightning service, but they may have the ability to just keep all your money. So that's a risk.
Yeah. Cool. There is a kind of related question. What do you think is the biggest problem that Lightning Network has right now?
I think the biggest problem is that it's difficult for people to run their own full nodes. If you look at what people use on their phones or most software, it's not verifying transactions. It's not really verifying signatures. It may have keys, but if you look at stuff like LDK or CLN or LND, you can't use it. Like, I can use it sort of, but it's very difficult to use. And so people will use stuff on their phones that it would be cool if there was a nice app on your phone that was really trustless, that you could compile yourself and copy it over to your phone and actually do all this. But there's sort of things that are trustless and over here that, like, you know what's going on, and then there's things that are easy to use over here, and we're not really getting those two things to overlap yet. Hopefully soon.
I just remembered your talk in asking about why Johnny doesn't use pretty good privacy. For those who didn't see that, you can see it from home, from BTC++ in Austin. It's a great talk. It's one of my favorites because sometimes I am not a developer, then we think as a non-developer or non-technical people, like coding, we cannot help. But I actually think this talk that you gave was amazing. Do you want to share a little bit of the two features that we now have in Bitcoin Core thanks to your father?
My dad or my brother. So I like, it's weird because I've worked on Bitcoin for 10 years, and I know many of the people who work on Bitcoin, and so I'm not as intimidated, I guess. Like, if when I first started, I don't know any of these people, I'm not going to say anything. But now I kind of know them. right? And like a lot of them have like come to visit my house, or like we hang out a lot. And so if there's something wrong in Bitcoin, I will tell them. I'll be like, hey, this doesn't work. And so a few years ago, my dad wanted to get Bitcoin, and he started saying, okay, well, I want to run it the right way, because you work on Bitcoin, you tell me about it, so I want to do it the right way. I'll get this software, Bitcoin Core, and I will download it and download the blockchain. But first, I will make a backup of my wallet on a USB stick, and then I will delete everything, and I will restore this USB stick to make sure that I have a backup that works. I said, okay, yeah, good idea, Dad. And then he did that, but he couldn't get it because this is fixed now. But in the like dialog box, you say like file save, opens a dialog, you can save to USB stick. But when you say file restore, like restore wallet, it would only restore the wallet if it was in your Bitcoin folder, which is a hidden folder. And so he was doing it on Windows. He couldn't find the folder. And so I told Andrew Chow, because he's the one who works on the wallet
maintainer. Now is the one.
Yeah, and I said, hey, like, my dad was trying to do this and this, like, I know how to fix it, but like he didn't know. Like it's not obvious, right? You save it and then you can't load it. Like you try to load it won't let you. And like I know, because you have to move it to this folder, and it's a hidden folder and this. But yeah, a regular person, it doesn't say this. He won't know. And so then they fixed it. But like it's just a weird example where like that shouldn't happen, right? It shouldn't be like my dad can't figure it out, and so I tell someone I know to fix Bitcoin. Like that just feels like very, I don't know, amateur kind of. And this is like a trillion, such a big system. So I don't know. So that's part of it. And I think it's hard. Like if someone who doesn't know anyone downloads Bitcoin and has a question or has a problem with it, one, I think it's very hard to like, ask this question. And two, maybe if you ask, they ignore you. I don't know. Like maybe I think in general, people who work on Bitcoin are really friendly and nice people. But it's true that if they don't know if it's some person they don't know on Twitter or on GitHub, it's a lot easier to ignore. You maybe don't worry about it as much. So it is a hard problem where a lot of the developers, it's not like a company, it's not like there's feedback the same way because it's all open source. So it is a bit harder to develop that way.
But yeah, run Bitcoin Core, and here in the seminar, in the course, you are gonna learn to run your Lightning node in testnet and in mainnet, and also you can learn how to use GitHub and add an issue. Is something we are gonna learn here, and there is not a small thing. Like we say in Spanish, todos ponemos nuestro granito de arena. That means like everybody make our part, right? And then you also can make, every one of us have the power to make a change in the Bitcoin Lightning protocol, even if it's just in the wallet. Everybody can do it. I think that's what this anecdote and a personal story, I really like it about you, like how your father has, in some ways, is part of the Bitcoin story now. Mm-hmm. There is some questions. Do you guys want to do it yourself, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I was raising my hand just to try to talk. Thank you, Tadge, for joining us. I'm very interested in hearing from you, all of your opinions. So I have a question. This is something that I often do when someone asks me how to use Lightning Network. I always tell them to use small amounts in Lightning Network wallets. Usually, what I tend to say is that you just keep what you are willing to be lost on your cell phone, or maybe someone steals your phone and you lose whatever you have on that wallet. Do you think that in the future it might be the case that people will choose to use Lightning Network for large payments instead of just small ones, like you do in Bitcoin? If you move thousands of dollars with the main layer of Bitcoin, do you think that could happen? There could be some sort of adoption at a point in which people also transfers large amounts of Bitcoin using Lightning Network?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think some of the issues with Lightning for large payments is it's a hot wallet, right? So it's sort of online, and signing is harder. And a lot of times with large amounts, people want to do multi-sig, so you have multiple devices or things. And in theory, that's definitely possible in Lightning. But I think the software we have so far is not so useful for that, right? So I think the reasoning is, well, these are hot wallets, and your Lightning node, the keys are right there. So if anyone can take over this computer, they can steal all the money. But that's not a fundamental thing. Like some of the work with Taproot channels or things like this could have, so you say, like a company could say, oh, we have 2 or 3 computers that both sign off. So there's a Lightning node, but actually it's running on these 3 computers, and they all need to sign off together. So if one person loses their computer or one computer gets hacked, then it's still safe. So that kind of work, some people are working on it a lot of times with Taproot channels and some of these things, but it's still not quite there. So right now, as far as I know, all the Lightning nodes really just have one signature and sort of one key. And so that would be a big step to letting people safely use larger amounts, I think. But you can do it right now. Like there's companies that have millions of dollars in a Lightning channel. I think it's kind of risky, but yeah. So it's definitely possible.
Thank you, Ted.
Sure.
Following question, and I'm going to explain this in classes later. If there is ways to use multiple persons or partners or entities or peer to sign a transaction in a Lightning channel, do you think it's more probable to use Frost or to use MPC? Like, I don't know, maybe just like it's a very tricky question. I'm sorry.
MPC is a very general term. Like, I don't know. Frost is MPC, right? It's multiple parties computing. I don't know. So yeah, like I will say that a lot of times MPC has been meaning like sort of ECDSA threshold signatures that a lot of times use like weird stuff like Palier encryption. And like, I generally don't like those because I don't understand them. And they seem super complicated and weird. And like, okay, to be fair, Frost is complicated, right? Frost is also complicated, but I can kind of understand it. Like that's at the limit of like, okay, I see what's going on here. Musig, Frost, like I get it, kind of, still hard. But then the stuff with like a lot of the threshold ECDSA stuff where they're just like, oh, it's a black box. I don't understand it at all. It seems like I would rather use something like Frost.
Okay.
Maybe that's just because of the people I know, and so like I know more of the people that work on Frost, right? I don't know, but also like I've talked to those people a lot, and then it's complicated, but I can understand it better. Yeah. So I think stuff like that is probably the better way to go, because now that we have Taproot, we can do Taproot channels. Using Schnorr signatures, it's definitely easier. So I don't know if people are aware, but like ECD, so Schnorr signatures, there's this German guy, Klaus Schnorr. I think he's kind of a jerk. And
he is. Well, he didn't put it open source.
Yeah, he patented. So he came up with this signature thing, which is actually very simple and straightforward. It's a great algorithm, but he patented it. So he said, okay, I own this equation. And so no one else could really use it because he wanted to charge money. So for like almost 20 years, no one really touched it. And so ECDSA, the general, so most Bitcoin signatures are ECDSA. That was really written by lawyers and, programmers and lawyers. And the programmer says, well, what if we change this? And the lawyer says, no, it still counts as Schnorr signature. What if we change this? Oh, no, it's still. And then, okay, what if we change all these things and make it crazy? Then they say, okay, that's different. Then Klaus Schnorr cannot sue you. So they made this like ugly signature system just so it's different. And that's what many things used. But now the patent has expired, so we can use Schnorr signatures, and it's much easier. So I think the stuff like Frost and Roast is just a much nicer system that's easier to understand and easier to figure out and make it safe. I mean, it's still complicated, right? But if you look at like the Frost paper versus like some of the MPC ECDSA threshold stuff, it's like 10 pages and 100 pages. So it's much simpler. Yeah, that's my take. Yeah,
and it's interesting because a lot of the crypto industry is using more like ECDSA MPC signatures with the custodial, but actually there is not a lot of implementation in Frost, not a lot of knowledge on that. Maybe later
It's newer,
since you are not in MIT anymore, you can give a class about frost and snore other day. That would be super cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. There is other questions. Gustavo, do you want to do it, or should I do it? Like your question. Okay.
I try.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Hi, Tadge. I have a question. You have continued working on how to improve the protocol, or what is your current focus in this moment in Lightning Network?
Sure. So yeah, until last fall, I was working on U3XO mostly, and that's not Lightning. I mean, it can work with Lightning, but it's a separate change to Bitcoin. And now I'm at a company called Lightspark, and a lot of what I'm doing there is helping them. They're sort of like, okay, we want to do large, like you were saying, large payments on Bitcoin, or payment, companies working on Bitcoin. So I said, okay, that's interesting. So I'm helping there. I think there will be some protocol changes that I'm interested in. One of the things I'm interested in is probing. And so this is because I started at this company, and they are doing these sort of probes, which some people might say is an attack on Lightning Network. I don't really think it's an attack, but I can see how it might be bad in some ways, where they say, okay, well, we want a better success rate. So if you make a Lightning payment, a lot of times it says, oh, I'll try to send it Alice to Bob to Carol to whatever. And a lot of times it fails, right? Maybe half the time it fails. But the software will automatically try again and try again. And so usually it will work, but maybe it takes 20 seconds, right? Or maybe after 30 or 40 seconds, it gives up and says it doesn't work. So one of the ideas of probing is, okay, let's try to map out the whole network and see who has channels that work. Maybe this channel is offline. Maybe this channel, all the money is one side or the other. And so trying to discover this. And so the probing works, but I worry that is kind of a centralizing force, where maybe if there's a company that can probe and discover the network, but they keep that information to themselves, if you use this company, then the payments are a very high success. But if you just run it on your own, you'll have a lower success rate. So I think I'm going to talk to people. So next week, there's a Lightning Network sort of meetup in New York. And that's one of the things I will be talking to people about. It's hard though. Like, even though I wrote the paper and stuff, I can't change this. Like, nobody listens to me. So there's so many things in Lightning Network protocol. I'm like, oh, it's so bad. Why did they do this? And I argue, no, don't do this. And then they do. So it's decentralized. I can argue with people, but I don't have control. So that's what I'll be talking about.
Thank you, Tadge. Does everybody understand what is probing and how it works? Like, basically, we are just started, but we have these payment channels, and basically we open by messaging people. But sometimes you don't know what is the route or what is the path your payment is gonna take, and some people think like probing is an attack because you are attacking the network. But right now,
it's fake payment. So the way they're doing probing is fake payments. They send a payment and they know it will fail because it's the receiver cannot receive this payment, or the receiver doesn't exist or something. And then the error that comes back, they will learn more about the network because of the error. And so in some ways that's an attack, but I also understand why you need to do this. And it works. You get much better data, and then you have more reliable payments. So that's a tricky trade-off there.
Okay, I have a following question, but I'm gonna let Fox Sulu to ask his question first.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Regarding the probing, I mean, you're doubting if it is actually an attack or not. But I understand that it's just some type of a solution that was found to be able to get an exact map of the channels in a specific moment. And
you want to know the balance, so you can see the channels because the channels are public. But if there's a channel with 5 Bitcoins, are all 5 on one side, or is it 2.5? You want to know which side it's on so that you can route.
Yeah. So exactly in that way, you are just launching thousands of payments on a specific frame time or time frame, sorry, that all of them are actually created to fail on purpose, just to find out the different spots where the hubs where they will be jumping, or hubs they will be jumping to with the right amount of. I mean, how can that actually not be beneficial for the Lightning Network? What other? I mean,
so there's a couple reasons. One is that it's so this is one of the things I'm going to talk about next week. Is if you don't know, you think you're saying, oh, I'm getting a payment coming in here and I'm going there, but actually it's fake. Maybe you don't want to relay these fake payments because that takes up some space on your hard drive, right? You have to store this, you have to do all this work, and you might say, hey, I don't want to deal with this fake payment. That's, I only want to deal with real payment, and you won't get the payment, the fees. So, and then the other I worry about is if a large company can do this, but a regular home user cannot, then that means the large company, all their customers will have very good payment success rate, but then the user at home will have a worse success rate. And that will make more and more people start to use the company rather than doing it at home. And that feels a little bit dangerous to me, like centralizing in a way.
But the problem with the centralization is because we have asymmetric information, right? We don't know. But if we have liquidity ads, or I can share my information about, hey, like if there is a way with liquidity ads to say, this is what I'm going to charge you to pass over here in this direction, and this is how much I'm going to charge you to pass to my payment to my node in this direction. Maybe we can find a way to have more symmetric information, right? Like a kind of say, because what is happening with asymmetric information is one big node, a big company is going to have all the information, and then we stop having a competitive market to have like an oligopoly or oligopoly market. Then if there is ways to share information, it can work with ads, or there is other things we can do.
There's definitely so this is like when we started working on Lightning, I saying first what we should do is ask, hey, can I route this payment through you? Would you be able to do this all the way? And then when you get a path, you do it. But people don't like that. So there's a lot of different ideas on how to do this. So for example, BlueMap, he says, even if you can route a payment, you should just randomly fail half the time, right? Because otherwise they will learn your channel balances, right? So there's sort of a privacy, like, oh, I don't want people to know where my money is because I don't want them to be able to trace the payments, versus, no, I want everyone to know so it will have a high success rate. So there's kind of this trade-off where like privacy versus reliability. And I'm honestly more on the reliability side. And I know some people, I say, no, the most important is privacy. And that's, that's just sort of what you think is important. Or to me, I think it's like, yeah, privacy is very important, but I think the current privacy in the Lightning Network doesn't actually work that well. And so we need a better way to have privacy maybe. But just saying, oh, let's randomly fail, or let's hide the status of our channels so that it's more private, it ends up making it's less reliable. So
and also I think with the privacy thing, I'm sorry, I'm going to say something, like it's more important to let the people the option. Like if I want to be private, it's okay. But if I want to put all my life in Instagram, or in this case, all my liquidity and all of my information in my node to be reliable, it's my option, it's my choice. This is kind of my opinion. Carlos, go next.
Thank you. Well, you said a few answers ago, or 4 questions ago, sorry, that you will feel risky to put a lot of money on the Lightning Network. So what do you think the industry should do in order to solve those issues?
A lot of it's just, it's way better than it was a few years ago. Like a few years ago, I don't know, 2019, like channels would just close the wrong way. People would just lose money. There's so many more bugs. It's just bugs mostly. And so I think a lot of it is as it just gets more reliable, people are doing more things, and it's just more well tested, and then it's safer to put more money. And then I do think some kind of multi-sig where you can have multiple. So there's, you know, regular old bugs, and then there's, oh, what if someone attacks or gets this computer or something? And so just making the software more robust will help with bugs. And then with multiples, I think most of the companies I've talked to, they do like the idea of multiple signers. And once we get some multiple signers, that will make it much more safe for people as well.
Cool, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks. There is a question from Johnny from Venezuela. He say, he wants to know what is your personal opinion and about custodial wallets. What is the role that custodial wallets play? Like, do you think the custodial wallets are an attack or attack to the Bitcoin sovereignty, or like or actually custodial wallets are needed while the user learn how to use Bitcoin? Like, what are your points of view on this custodial versus non-custodial wallet?
Yeah, it is tough. I want, like, I know that I think most of the people who use Bitcoin use custodial wallet. They have, you know, Coinbase or Kraken or some exchange or something like that. And I don't think it's like bad as long as everyone is aware of what's going on and saying, look, here are the risks. Like, yeah, you don't really have Bitcoin. You have sort of a bank account. Also, it's not really a bank. Do you know the people? Maybe learn about what they're doing. But it's okay as long as everyone knows. And I understand that, like, it is very difficult to run the non-custodial wallets right now. It's for most people, it's too hard. And so I think it's okay that there are custodial wallets. I'm not going to like say, oh no, you're running custodial wallet, that's bad. But I do think sometimes it's kind of risky. You don't know who's behind these things, right? And it's easy for someone to say, oh, there's so much money and run away with it. So that happens with exchanges and custodial things sometimes. So it's dangerous, but I understand why it's happening. And I think we need to work to make it easier and you know, easier for people to run on their own instead of just using custodial.
Thank you. Blue Moon, thank you. Blue Moon, do you want to ask your question or should I read it? Okay, I'm going to read it, I guess. Or you can read it, Tadge. It's like Blue Moon asked.
Blue Moon. On-chain Bitcoin is not for everyone. People don't understand privacy. If they will be able to use Lightning, that will be custodial. I don't know. Like,
it's good. I think
Bitcoin is not for. I mean, some people don't like Bitcoin, and that's fine. Like, you know, like it's sort of a very voluntary. Like, use it if you want, don't use it if you don't want, and you can use your local currency. But I don't think the privacy. Like, privacy is this weird thing where a lot of the developers really like privacy, and a lot of people don't. So like the first thing people do with Bitcoin is they started making vanity gen and making like their name in the address and stuff, you know, or the miners put like their mining who they are in the Coinbase field. So like sometimes people want to advertise and say, hey, look at me. So you can't stop that. And then I'm not quite sure what you mean. Like layer 2 will be custodial. Yeah, I don't know. Like, hopefully layer 2 is not custodial. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I hope that people are able to have their own, you know, their own channels with their own private keys on their own hardware that they control and understand. I think it's hard, but I think we can get there because I guess, like, I remember when I was a kid, like, I was a nerd but you know, I used computers, but most people didn't use computers, or even like the idea of cell phone. It's so nerdy. Right? It's like, oh, you're just looking at your computer or something. But now everyone uses cell phones. So everyone's a nerd, right? Or I even remember the first time my sister, she was using the computer to chat with her friends. And I was like, this is my computer. And then my mom says, no, it's family's computer. You have to let your sister use it. So like, I think part of it is making Bitcoin easier. Also, I think part of it is everyone will learn a lot more about Bitcoin, right? I think people will become more nerdy and people will say UTXOs in the future, and they'll know UTXO is money. And, you know, so it's going both ways. Like, people become more knowledgeable and nerdy about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin gets easier and safer to use.
Then, you think it's what get you excited the most about Bitcoin and Lightning is make it usable for the 8 billion of people we are, or what makes you like, if you have something positive like, oh, Lightning is really good for this, and also make me happy to work on X topic, what would be that?
Yeah. I mean, I do think, and like, so in Miami, a couple of weeks ago, Jeremy Rubin's like, Bitcoin's not worth working on if we can't have everyone use it. I don't know if it's quite that far. I do want everyone to be able to use it, but maybe not everyone will use it, and that's sort of totally fine possibility. I think it does. I guess it's weird. Like, I don't know. I know people from Argentina, and I think it's more. From the people I've talked to in Argentina, there's like more Bitcoin usage there. I know Sebastian Serrano, like he has a company there, and like actually my brother, he bought a car from a guy who was moving back to Argentina. He's like, oh yeah, I want Bitcoin. So like, I think it's the kind of thing where if your country's economy or currency is worse, then you need it more. And so it's a little weird in America. I mean, America had a lot of inflation the last 2 or 3 years. So it was like, oh yeah, like even America, like there can be these problems.
4% against 400%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Sure,
no, it was
sure.
more than 4%. It was like almost 10%. But yeah, so I mean, so in America, kind of it's kind of easier. Like, oh, the banks are pretty good and financial system is pretty good, and people still want Bitcoin. But it does seem like, oh yeah, and in some places you need it much more.
Okay.
And so I think it makes sense.
I'm gonna make a poll. Like, please do your thumbs up if you live in Argentina, Cuba, Venezuela, or in any country who have like more than 100 inflation in the last 10 years. Like, just to make a poll. Like,
Not me, no. I'm safe.
No. Maybe for those who don't know how to use this, we were using Zoom. You have to click the hand, and in the arrow, there is like emojis. Like, I know we have people from Cuba and Venezuela.
I don't see down. I see thumbs up.
Oh yeah, cool. Now we have actually some interesting data is 30% of our students, if not more, it depends on the class, maybe sometimes even 50. It's from Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina, and even in Mexico in the 90s, we have a big, huge inflation, and I think that makes us like to want to learn more about the good money about the possibilities of using Bitcoin as a regular money. Yeah. But there is somebody. Carlos, go ahead.
Thank you. So I was wondering, how do you picture the future of Lightning Network? Talking about, let's say, I mean, 5 to 10 years. Thinking about, I mean, like the best scenario for you, and maybe something not that good.
Okay, so best case scenario, there's like PTLCs, and like many people have, their phone, but also have some hardware at home. Like, I think that's a good case where you have some device at home that has your keys, and then your phone can control it and talk to it, and then you have your Lightning node. So you have millions of people using it, and it's really reliable, and that would be great. Worst scenario is maybe it's something like BitTorrent or something where, like, nerdy people use it, and it's still a good community and people like using it, but it's not really mainstream, right? It's maybe you have thousands of people using it here and there, but maybe it doesn't quite get to be so popular. But maybe that's also okay. Like, I sort of think of like BitTorrent. I don't know if people use BitTorrent to like download movies and stuff, but I think that it's important that exists, because then the companies like Netflix will make a better deal. And so I think maybe if Lightning isn't even that popular, or Bitcoin isn't that popular, maybe you'll still have banks or countries saying, hey, we need to do a better job, because if we do a bad job, everyone will move to Lightning Network or Bitcoin. So maybe that's sort of a not as fun scenario, but maybe still okay.
Okay, yeah, a little quick follow-up question. Okay, so you say that in a really good case scenario, everyone would use or would have their own node running through their mobile phone. But are you or is your team working on how to get let's say that billion users, but even though you have the technology to run your own node easily through your phone, that doesn't mean that all the people are going to use it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's probably people who don't mind having a different setup, but that sort of has been my goal for a long time. Like, okay, with U3XO, it makes running a full node much smaller, so you could run it on a phone or something. And with Lightning, trying to make it very efficient. So just because you can, yeah, maybe many people will still say, I have custodial wallet, and that's fine. And there's projects that I think are custodial, but in a good way, like Fedimint. I don't know if you talk to where it's sort of, hey, you can have custody, but with people you trust, right? And so that makes sense. Like I have my brother's Bitcoin on my computer because he doesn't know computers, so like something like that. Like I'm not going to steal his money. So I think there are cases where custodial can be okay too, but we want to make it so that lots of people have the ability to run it completely on their own.
Okay, we are arriving to the last minutes, but I want to make sure, like, if somebody else have a question, comment.
Or also, so wait, Dulce, are you going to StatsConf in November? I don't know. I think
Brazil?
I'm going. Yeah,
Let's
Brazil.
go.
I've never been south. Like I think I went to Mexico once, but I've never,
Yeah.
And I went to El Salvador with you, but like, yeah.
And I speak Portuguese too.
You do? Okay, so I think I'll go there in November. So if anyone's in Brazil, that's cool.
Yeah, actually, thinking in going to New York next week if it's not too crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I'm probably going to be in StatsConf, and also quick commercial, like the teachers like Jose, Fox, and Gustavo, and having talking here. They are from the South America, and they probably will be in LaVitConf. Then we will be teaching VidCon. LaVitConf is 3 days after StatsConf, and the tickets is like $50-100 from Sao Paulo to Buenos Aires, and it's 1 hour flight. Then
well, I could go to both. I don't know. I should make a big deal. Like I've never been to South America, so that should be fun.
Yeah. It will be fun. We can talk about it next week. Somebody else have question? Oh, Seba Cordero. Oh, wow.
What mechanism? Something I can't tell. ISP.
Yeah, it's like. I guess it's kind of, we've been talking about mesh networks, like North Korea. It's like how people who don't have internet can access to Lightning Network. And for those who don't know, Lightning Network and Bitcoin are a protocol. That means it's information, right? It doesn't necessarily need to use internet. Bitcoin is more than the internet, the native internet of the money. Is the internet of technology. We can use radio, Bluetooth, NFC. It's like it can use everything, right? And Seba say how we can facilitate the use of Bitcoin and Lightning in places where we don't have internet, maybe ISP.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. Like I know some people, like Jonathan HB, he's at Lightning Labs. He was interested in this stuff. There's nothing like, oh, here, use this software right now.
No.
But in theory, like it's sort of like, yeah, you've got this sort of this mesh-y looking network of payment channels. Maybe those also give each other data about the blockchain. So that would be really cool. It's something that in most cases people, but also this was a problem like in El Salvador. They're like, oh, pay with Lightning. And I'm like, my phone doesn't work here. I don't have
we have this problem.
Like, so I'll just use dollars, I guess. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or now there is the SATS card that you can have NFCs, but then the other device must have NFCs. But yeah, Jonathan from Lightning Labs has like a demoing of how to send and receive with radio. And for those who don't know, Jonathan is going to be in LaVitConf. He is from Argentinian roots, and he speaks a little bit in Spanish, actually. Okay, and I'm reading Alberto Sosa question: the creation of micropayment services, smart contracts, online games, decentralized application. He asked about what would be layer 3, basically.
Yeah,
Do you
I
think
don't
there's
know.
a layer 3?
I didn't come up with the name layer 2 either, so I don't know.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, I mean, you can have stuff. There's a lot of different layer, like some of the discrete log contract kind of smart contracts. Some people say it's layer 3. I don't know. Like, I think a lot of them, you want to build up more applications, but I don't know what the layers are. There's no like official OSI model or kind of thing. But yeah, like stuff on top of Lightning, maybe you can call it layer 3.
This is why we need marketers, guys.
Oh yeah, there's
don't
no good marketing. Like, I mean, I will say I came up with the name Lightning Network. That seems to have stuck. So okay, that worked. Joseph wanted to call it Semaphore, so that maybe wouldn't have been as popular. I don't know, but yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just like the people who are working, like no one wants to work on the GUI. Everyone wants to work on the cool cryptography stuff, right? So that's sort of the people you get, or at least you have had so far. But I think it's really good because lots of new people are now starting to work on this stuff. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, perfect. Guys, it's okay to take a photo for social media. You can close your camera or you can open your camera, up to you, just before closing, because I know it's late where Tadge is. And say hi.
It's later in like Brazil, right? They're an hour. I don't know.
What time are you in Argentina, guys?
Argentina's same as
Right now,
9:14.
9:14. Yeah.
9:14. Okay, for me 8:14 now. Yeah. So
Like a last seminar, we have people from Spain, and I remember.
Spain. That's like
and sometimes like, what time is it? And then they say it's 1 a.m. But
yeah, it's too late.
it's like it was like auto selection or self selection, because we have like 4 people from Spain. They were amazing, but I guess if they were
Too
like Lightning nerds, because they were willing to be at 2 a.m. with us.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah, hope to see some people in well, I don't know if anyone's in maybe I'll see you in New York next week. They'll say, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
people
It's still
in,
to be defined. Tickets
Brazil.
are expensive, and as I didn't buy Bitcoin, and I don't have Bitcoin a lot.
I know. I didn't
don't have
either.
Bitcoin.
I didn't have any money when I learned about it. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
the thing is, like, nerd people, we don't have money to buy Bitcoin, and then we invest our money and time learning Bitcoin, and then we don't have Bitcoin. Yeah, that's kind of the story.
I have a little bit, but I still have to work. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have to work. Like, this is why we work. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I would work in open source. I would love to do it. Thank you so much, Tadge, for your time.
Sure.
Thank you so much for this inauguration of this class and course. I hope it's going to be a 3 months seminar, classes, workshops, plus speakers like Tadge and other people. I hope you keep motivated, guys and gals, to participate. You still have time to enroll. Still have time to invite your friends. Quick commercial. We are gonna give 10 scholarships to women or young ladies who want to learn Lightning. If you know somebody, we need more ladies, more women, more girls in this class. I normally hang out with only few girls in the events, but we should be more. Then please tell your tías, sobrinas, primas, hermanas, novias, a todas tus novias que se inscriban al curso de Lightning Network. Having said that, thank you so much, Tadge, for everything.
Okay, thanks. See you guys.
Bye.
See ya, bye. We can
Adios.
stay. Bye if you want. I'm
Bye.
just gonna stop recording.
Bye.
There was actually one last question from Fox, but I believe he already left.
¿Ya se fue o sigue aquí, Tadge?
No, ya se fue.
Ah,
I
lo
just
siento.
don't-
Es que le dije que solo era 1 hora. Entonces, ya. Ok, chicos.
Voy a parar
Pero, a ver, ¿cuáles son las preguntas si las vemos?
Recording
era
has stopped.
una pregunta corta para él, que era cómo veía de qué manera se podía aumentar la capacidad de Bitcoin bloqueados dentro de la Lightning Network para hacer la